In this video, we're exploring some reasons why it seems that everyone is still moving to Alabama, in spite of things that we've talked about in the past that work against us in Lower Alabama, such as its decreasing affordability due to hurricanes and the insurance that follows, or it's changing culture and so on and so forth. Mobile, Alabama isn't all sunshine and rainbows from all that rain we get. There is crime, and you may not like the school systems in Mobile or the fact that this is a much smaller city than what you may be used to. We literally just had someone comment on one of our first videos we made talking about all the reasons why she hates Mobile as a Mobilian herself.
And if you cross the Eastern Shore, you may notice a decrease in affordability, the way the culture is changing from past to present. Even in the past 5 years, its culture has really shifted, and the locals will be the first to tell you that the Eastern Shore is not what it used to be. The congestion on the roads being one of the biggest complaints, schools becoming overcrowded, housing develops going up on every single corner, and of course, all of those transplants that are coming in left and right.
But we do have a lot to look forward to as well, especially with the companies coming here. So there are a lot of reasons that we've talked at length about in the past as to why Alabama might not be the right place for you. Even at the risk of discouraging or dissuading you guys on this channel, we absolutely pride ourselves with keeping it blunt and pretty straightforward so that you are prepared as possible before making such a big decision.
All right, let's get right into it and break down some of the reasons why, in spite of its imperfections, Alabama is still the top choice for many who are starting out. Let's get perhaps the most controversial of those reasons out of the way first, and that would be the subject of politics. And rest assured, we're not going to be talking about politics because that's not what this channel is about, nor do we have any interest in talking about that
whatsoever.
No, but I just know that a lot of clients who've reached out to us have told us that one of the biggest reasons that they're moving here is it's politically driven. And so truth of the matter is, Alabama, for better or worse, is a red state. It has its strengths and it has its weaknesses and pros and cons.
And a lot of people have been looking at Alabama as a place that perhaps could be perceived as selfish or careless, but for other people, it could be perceived as free, right? So people are reaching out to us saying, you know, they're forcing our kids to wear masks in schools, or they're teaching our kids things we don't want them to teach, or they're making us get vaccinated, or they're making us show proof of vaccination, and just things like that.
Right, and there's also riots and protests, and it's just a mess in some areas in a lot of the blue states. So we have people calling us, telling us those sorts of things, and they're looking for a new place to live, and that's why we started this channel, to give people a window into our world so that they can know what it's like to live here.
And most people who call us are comparing Alabama to the state where they live in now, and they're trying to figure out if Alabama just makes more sense for them. So I think a lot of people are coming here for that reason, because hey, we haven't had to wear a mask here in, feels like ages. And if you go to some places, people wear them freely and openly, and that's okay. And that's just the reality that it's been here. You could look at it as a positive or a negative, just depending on, of course, who you are and what your views are and things like that. But yes, politics is a big reason, believe it or not, in spite of, things have been in the recent years, a lot of clients are looking at red states as the place to go, especially, if they're coming from a place like New York or California.
Or Chicago, like where we're from. Before we moved, we witnessed the city struggle with crimes like shootings and carjackings and just theft in general. But moving right along, we're now going to talk about another reason why so many people are flocking to Alabama, and that would be the economy, the jobs, and the opportunities available. So in case you haven't heard, Alabama is getting a lot of new growth economically.
Yeah, from new Amazon and Walmart distribution centers to shipbuilders and shipyards like Austell, and obviously the Port of Mobile, which is one of the largest ports on the Gulf Coast.
You also have aerospace job opportunities throughout the entire state. And if that's not your field, then you might like the 3,000 acre mega site in Bay Minette that's going to create like 1,000 jobs. And Novelis is projected to pay an average annual salary of $65,000 per year.
And if you don't know, Novelis is the world leader in aluminum rolling and recycling. So the fact that they want to invest more than $2.5 billion to build a new low carbon recycling plant here in Baldwin County, that's a huge win. and I only see more companies following in their footsteps.
Absolutely. And especially because there's so much land available in Lower Alabama too. We hear pretty often that it's no longer the old farm town that it once used to be. And while that sure has its drawbacks, especially for the locals who aren't happy with the insane growth, it also has a lot of its strengths regarding the economy and jobs and opportunity for a lot of people who are wanting to either change their career, get a promotion, work from home, relocate, whatever the reason may be. And no, I'm not trying to say that Alabama should change or that it's recession proof, but it's a strong place. And if that's why you're eyeing it in the first place, then you're looking in the right direction. A place for opportunity and endless growth with all these factories coming here. It's looking really good in Alabama.
And if that's not the reason you're coming here, maybe it's because you've considered going to school here or sending your kids to the schools that are offered here in Alabama. Whether it's the universities like Alabama or Auburn or South Alabama or grade schools that are highly ranked time and time again here, we've heard a lot of clients say how shocked they are to hear about our award-winning school systems.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned this. If you look at greatschools.org, you're gonna see that Lower Alabama has top-rated schools in the area. All the areas that we service, from Saraland all the way down to Gulf Shores. I could really get into that, but if you're interested in learning more about the schools, check out our other videos. We have one that's specifically on schools in Baldwin County, and it's really informative.
Another big factor is affordability. And this is interesting because ultimately it is relative and it all boils down to subjective perspective, right? So truth be told, the eastern shore of Lower Alabama is less affordable than Mobile, Alabama, and less affordable than, say, Birmingham's like Jefferson County. And if you're living on Mobile Bay or the Gulf Coast, then any city in the state of Alabama might be cheaper than living in, say, like Gulf Shores or Orange Beach or Fairhope.
What Tony's trying to say is that it might be cheaper than some of your big cities, but it's not going to be cheap, especially depending on what part of Alabama you choose. And this reminds me of a topic of discussion right now in Daphne, Alabama. The city wants to raise the taxes because they need more for schools and teachers and so on and so forth because of the huge growth in population. But a lot of the current residents do not want to raise taxes, and that's not a surprise. But that's why they love it so much here. Cheap taxes, great weather. Who doesn't love that?
I don't care. I love it. I don't care.
On the other hand, people are flocking in, so they know they need to keep up. So what do? Are current funds being spent correctly? Is there really a need for more money? Or can they utilize the funding they already have? Those are questions I don't have the answer to, but it's definitely a topic of discussion, like Jessica just mentioned.
It definitely is more expensive here than it was 5 years ago. And as I mentioned, it's relative depending on where you currently live. If you're coming from a place like California or Oregon, you might come here and think this is the cheapest place you've ever been.
Yeah, you could also come from some parts of Cali and think we're not as cheap as you thought, like one lady did who flew out here a few weeks ago. Yeah. And we love when people fly and meet us. But in this particular case, she was looking for a lot for acreage with a new house, a swimming pool, a horse stable,
In-ground pool.
Yeah, all the bells and whistles, right?
The Cadillac of homes she wanted.
Exactly, that was it. But she didn't want to spend the Cadillac prices. It's more expensive than what you think, and a lot of people just kind of think, they're coming here, but we're close to the coast. Vitamin D and that getting that sea breeze makes people happy. That's why a lot of people are coming here, not because it's dirt cheap. And don't get me wrong, in many parts within the greater Alabama area, it is relatively affordable, more than here, but even still, relating to where they're coming from and how they're being priced out of their own states, Lower Alabama is definitely a hot spot.
Yeah, and it's actually trendy, if you will, like a trendy, cool place in the state of Alabama, which is otherwise very old-fashioned. So again, don't get us wrong. Lower Alabama is absolutely more expensive now than it ever was, and it's going to continue to be that way. However, if you're splitting hairs and you're comparing us with San Francisco or LA or Portland or Seattle or Manhattan, whatever, the choice becomes very clear that you're definitely going to save a little bit more living here.
LA is in Los Angeles, not Lower Alabama.
Yeah.
Got it.
And now we're going to talk about lifestyle. And this is something I find very interesting as well. So let's say you're considering moving to Alabama and you have the big cities, right? Birmingham, the Huntsvilles, the Mobile, and Montgomery. Around the table, all of them are more affordable than most of the US. And let's say for the sake of this example, your job is not specific to a certain place. You can just pick freely, right? The case of Mobile or Lower Alabama is very interesting and attractive, and the reason why is because the lifestyle and aesthetic, the vibe is awesome, whatever word you want to use, it stands out of the rest, you know?
It really does. And for better or worse, as we mentioned, it's becoming less and less and less like Alabama here. It's becoming more and more like its own place now. It's really shifted.
It's LA, it's Lower Alabama. It's its own little piece of heaven in Alabama.
Yeah, or as some very angry people might argue, it is becoming more and more of a place for transplants. And so for better or worse, you look at Lower Alabama and it has this like hip, artistic, trendy, active lifestyle. You've got the kayaking, you've got paddleboarding, you've got the music venues and the festivals, you've got vegan food options and yoga, you've got breweries. And I do think a lot of people are attracted to Alabama, and some of them choose to live up in Huntsville or Birmingham because they want that very Alabamian city and lifestyle. But if I'm being honest, a lot of people who are contacting us who want to come to Alabama, or they've already visited here, they are actually not attracted to it. They want to be, down where it's more like, they are more or less looking for a place in Alabama similar to where they're coming from.
Yeah, and personally, I like it because it's the best of both worlds. You get kind of country living if you want it, or like Jess said. So if you're looking for a place that reminds you of wherever you're coming from, then this might be it. Relatively, of course, it's not gonna be just like that, but they look at LA for a place like that, you can find it. For example, I heard someone say they ended up here because, they weren't trying to be in North Alabama and they wanted to be somewhere closer to the beach, but that, that's kind of what they were used to. So they planned on being close to the water and socializing with tons of people every day, and that's what they got.
So you get that plus the beautiful greenery plus the water. That's what makes Lower Alabama so attractive. And lastly, another reason why people are still flocking to Lower Alabama in spite of its many imperfections, this is actually going to contradict what I said regarding the lifestyle in Lower Alabama and how it's unlike the rest of Alabama. The flip side of that is that it still attracts many people. The truth of the matter is that a lot of people are attracted to the Alabama lifestyle to begin with. They like the very true stereotype and reputation of warm people, and they like that Southern culture itself that attracts them, especially if they're ready for a change.
So, truth of the matter is, a majority of the people who relocate to Alabama aren't just moving to Lower Alabama. So that's gonna look like, Mobile, Spanish Fort, Daphne, Fairhope, Loxley, you name it.
Yeah, Gulf Shores, Orange Beach, the places that surround Mobile that are going to be between 20 and 60 minutes from Mobile. And so by living on the outskirts of Mobile, all of a sudden, culturally and aesthetically, vibe-wise, it can feel like a different part of Alabama. That's why we get the phone calls and messages asking us to clarify exactly what it's like. And there's a lot of pros that come with that. And in my personal opinion, my favorite of which is really the people of Lower Alabama. We've spent plenty of time in other places, but this is by far the best when it comes to everything. I don't worry about stress, anxiety, drugs, crime, and if you come here, you're really gonna know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I personally just like it because of people. People are great here, and if you're smart and you want to go somewhere else, this is definitely the place to be.
Yeah, check out our other videos and call us if you're ready to move here too. We're happy to help y'all.